Welcome to the Combo Stone Throwdown, where we look at the prospects of sharpening our knives on a single stone. The most efficient way to do that is on a combination stone. 2 sides, 2 grits. Most of us can get our knives as sharp as we need without much more than that. But not all stones are created equal, so let's look at today's contender. It's the ubiquitous Norton combination stone. It comes in 3 sizes. It's made of aluminum oxide and described as having a coarse side and a fine side. And that's ridiculous. It's 150 grit and a 400 grit, and those are both cutting grits in my mind. So I don't think there's any fine grit going on. When I think of fine grit, I think of something just below the polishing level, and 400 grit's a long ways from that to me. So I've used this stone many times, but I've never stopped here. I've always gone on to the next stone. So I'm very curious to see how it'll strop up. I'm not convinced we'll get a razor sharp edge, but we'll see. For me, oil stones are easier than water stones in many aspects, and I like them, you know. It scrubs clean quickly, the Norton does, with a faucet and soap and a brush. There's no soak time, there's minimal drying time before you store it, less chance of molding. I've never really seen an oil stone mold like I have water stones. There's not much collateral damage from splashing water about, and so on. So as you can see, this knife is extremely dull. I actually dulled it on the side of this stone. So it won't cut anything. My skin, paper, nothing. We're going to use some food grade mineral oil on here. After getting that done, we'll start with our sharpening. We'll put a time on this stuff. We'll see how long this takes with these stones. My technique is not to be duplicated. I have very poor technique with stone sharpening. Most of the knives I sharpen were on a work sharp, or more commonly the wicked edge. I used to use a Tormac for a while and some other things, but you know, stones to me are easier to use for sort of thinner profiled knives with lower angles, 15 degrees. And most of the knives I sharpened were outdoor knives, and people wanted convex edges and other things that I'm not adept with stone sharpening. So that didn't take too long. We're going to go to our 400 grit and see what sort of damage we can do here. Now, for cutting stones like this one, I don't really know how important quality is, to be honest, and that's part of why I'm doing these videos, is sort of examine that. I'm sure there are some donkey stones out there, but it doesn't take a lot to make a cutting stone, and in this price range we're working in, there really won't be many Japanese natural stones or Arkansas stones or polishing level grit contenders, which really is where sort of the low quality rip-offs are found in my experience. That being said, don't ever buy any stones off Amazon or eBay. Anyone can sell anything and call it whatever they want, put whatever picture and description they want on it with near anonymity on eBay and Amazon. That's not the place to get your stones. Just go to a better known website that sells this stuff. Here we're making a strop. Yep, you need a strop. That's just part of the deal. I've got some green compound from Dyco. It's a cutting compound. I've heated it up so that it mixes with the oil and gets into the grain of the leather a little easier. You don't have to heat it up, no worries. It just takes a little longer, a little more effort, but the oil will get it into a solution, so to speak, and carry it into the grain. You do this a couple times and you'll have something that looks like this. There's no need to go overboard. You don't have to make this thing entirely bright green like I see in a lot of YouTube videos. Otherwise, you could just strop directly on the compound bar itself and you wouldn't need a strop. But turns out you need a strop. You need that leather grain to provide a backing and some coarseness and things like that. So does it matter what compound you use? No, of course not. It doesn't matter what, you know, anything is finer than the 400 grit we just came off of, and that's the main goal. There may even be a small advantage to the cutting compound. Since the grit is so rough here, it might do a better, quicker job of stropping. But the truth is, any compound can make a knife razor sharp. Any rouge, you know, getting caught up in the different grits on that stuff, you know, if you're sharpening for a chef knife, you're gonna use it for sushi, you're sharpening a razor for your face, yeah, go down that road. Get some higher grit stones for that matter, and pay attention to what compounds you're using. But for 90% of users, I don't think it matters, to be honest. And yeah, you will need a strop. In fact, if you're going to do stone sharpening, your first purchase is really a strop and not a stone. Strops are phenomenal for keeping edges on things, just touching things up. They're cheap. That was a scrap piece of leather and $5 a compound. That's lasted me 3 years. So as you can see, this will actually push cut this thicker paper. That's sort of impressive. I didn't really count on that. some pulling there, but for the most part, push cuts this standard printer paper. Let's take it to a little bit thinner paper, this advertisement paper. That's probably a better test for this particular knife grind. It's a very shallow grind, a chef knife, a cooking knife, and this paper probably should be able to cut this paper pretty easily. As you can see, we're not doing any push cutting. Pull cutting it does fine, but some edges of this paper are rolled over, so I didn't get any purchase on that side, but this side, as you can see, it's a little easier. Pull cuts, no push cuts. I'm still sort of impressed, to be honest. Shaved hair off my arm, push cuts regular paper, and pull cut this paper. You know, I think that's a lot for that stone. That's more than I thought I would do. So in fact, I'm going to go and compare the grit just by feel with my Wicked Edge stones to see if it really feels like a 400 grit stone. And in fact, when I compare them side to side, the 100 and 200 grit feels like the 100 to 150 grit on the Norton stone. When I bring out the 400 grit on the Wicked Edge, yeah, it sort of feels like the 400 grit on the Norton. And Norton says it's a standard grit, the way they rate it. So my judgment is that this stone in a decent strop will sharpen most, but not all users' knives to their satisfaction. It's tough, long-lasting aluminum oxide with grit low enough to easily reshape and repair damaged edges. I like the ease of use of oil stones. Worth a look. What do you guys think? Let me know. I want to hear from you.